Hali
Sarah.
is the author of The Big We, which everyone in the room has, and you should buy 1 billion copies and send it to everybody you've ever met. She's also the founder of the Donor of Color Network. She's a co-founder of the Asian Women Giving Circle, so she's not just the president of the club, she's a member. She's the national leader of helping redefine who belongs in philanthropy. She's also a beekeeper and just a general badass that you should learn from.
You really are.
In a room of badasses, I have a feeling.
We also have Tyeshia Wilson. She is Senior Director of Community at Philanthropy Together. She is Chair-elect of Heritage Giving Fund, so she is also a member of a giving group. She works with giving circles across the globe. She's passionate about people, service, and empowering the community towards collective action and impact. And most importantly, she has a dazzling personality, and she is the only person I know who has managed to make Zoom meetings not boring.
What? I'm putting that on my resume.
That's a good one. And she has 5 children.
Yes.
That
And
part.
a
Y'all pray
grandchild.
for me.
So I'm going to kick it to Tyeshia and say, who are you and who first showed you what generosity looked like?
Sarah, thank you to you, Patrice, and the whole foundation team. Y'all, we went out to dinner last night, and the hospitality and just the love and the joy and the vibes were all there. So just want to give a shout out to the foundation. They're a real team that like each other, and you can tell. Oh, Lord, who am I? Who am I? Y'all can call me Ty. I am a philanthropist, first of all. I'm a mom. I am a community warrior. And I say that because I'm always fighting for the people. Like, I'm incredibly passionate about people, about all what's housed within us, and how much stronger we are together. I can say that I also am a person that is a radical lover. I love hard and love people, and it makes good sense why God Himself felt right to put me in the fields of philanthropy. Who in the world would have thought, Holly, that we would have whole, vibrant, thriving careers around philanthropy, around loving people, around encouraging generosity? And so, in a nutshell, that's who I am. But I'm also a woman from the South. I'm from Dallas, Texas. Go Cowboys! Even though
Go
we ain't.
Chiefs,
Don't
Chiefs,
start
Kansas
it.
City
Don't
Chiefs.
start. I'm a daughter of Cynthia Smith and William Chester Smith. My dad is no longer with me, and so I stand on their shoulders. So I'm a lot of things, but those are a few.
Tell us about your grandma.
My granny. Okay, so because that's a good question. Who exposed me to generosity? So y'all know I'm from Dallas. Dallas. My background is like city of Dallas, but then also country Dallas. So like my dad's side of the family is from city Dallas. They're from an area called Oak Cliff, if you know anything about Dallas. And then my mom's side are country folks from the southern part of Dallas, like rural area. So I feel like I'm a good mixture of both. I'm country and I'm a city girl for sure. But both of those sides of my family, my grandma, Joanne Washington, on my dad's side, and Alreen Harris on my mama's side, taught me how to give. And I know it sounds real cliche, y'all, but I learned how to give in church. I remember, like I was raised, y'all, we went to church 3 days a week, okay? On Monday, Wednesdays, and Sundays, without a doubt. Like it was up for debate. Even though my middle sister, she was like a little rugrat. She would fight my mom and them about going, but I was always excited to go. Because, you know, I like to put my little money. My granny would give me a couple of dollars and I would put it in a collection plate. I love the fact that they fed me because afterwards all the church ladies would be lined up with fried chicken and food and stuff like that. So for me, I was like, ooh, and then you can praise and sing in the church. The people come together to worship and to just celebrate community. So I say that to say, philanthropy met me where I was when I was in first grade, really, and learned the importance of coming together. And in that way, it was around our faith, right? but I didn't think about it. But my granny, both of them were philanthropists. They took time out of to feed church folks. They took time to host Bible study, to serve on the boards and on the choir and stuff like that. And they never used the word philanthropy, though. Like, I never in my life until I got into my career that I was like, oh, my granny and them were philanthropists. I never thought of them in that way, but now I honor them, y'all, and I praise God that I'm on the stage and I can lift up their voice and give them that title, because that's exactly who they were, and that's exactly who taught me how to give.
How many of you guys grew up tithing or practicing zakat or tzedakah or sociedad or arisan or ge or susu or mahiber or iyadar? These are the cultures of giving that we all come from. And one of the things that it's been my joy, pleasure, and privilege to learn about and now get to share through this book are these cultures of generosity that we all came from. And one of the things that I think we can push back a little bit on, we'll get into this later, Julie and I, on the billionaires taking over everything, is pushing back on that frame by remembering where we learned generosity. On whose shoulders do we stand to do this most precious and luckiest of work? And what kind of ancestor do we want to be for the future generations about whom we can only dream, And that's where we sit right now in this gorgeous space. I want to thank Sarah and RT and Patrice for bringing us here and treating us so beautifully. It could make me cry how nice you guys have been to us. Joanne, Julia, Michael, Maggie, Bill, Sam, thank you for a beautiful dinner last night, and Michael for arranging these gorgeous events. And I have a lot of friends in Minnesota. Courtney, new last name Patel, I'm still learning. Bo, Guff, Jennifer V from the other community foundation across the river. Thank you for having us here. I'm going to bring my grandma into the room too. I'm Korean American. I grew up in Kansas City. Go Chiefs.
Tread carefully, girl.
Lifelong Chiefs fan. I watched them, my brother and I watched them lose our whole childhood, so it's really fun that they're winning again. And my dad, that's true. My dad is 95, and he puts on a Chiefs jersey every game day, and I think the Chiefs are kind of responsible for keeping him alive a little bit at this point. My mom really doesn't care, but she's 90. So my grandma, Halmoni, she's Korean, I'm Korean American, and my earliest memories of generosity were stories from her generation. And Korea is a tiny little country that went through 2 terrible wars. So my parents' generation lived through World War II, some of them, and also the Korean War, a civil war that tore apart our tiny country just 5 short years after World War II, when we were really brutally colonized by what was then known as the Japanese Imperial Army. My grandmother became, I think, a widow. Her husband, my grandfather, was taken away by the Japanese and almost killed for his sin of being a patriot and a freedom fighter. And then 5 years later, he was taken away and presumed killed by what became the North Korean Army. But one by one, my grandmother was able to send each kid to America for college and grad school. My mom was the oldest daughter of the 6 kids that she became the single mom for. And every so often when I was growing up, I met someone who would say something like, your grandmother helped me come here by connecting me with someone through a church or through philanthropy, a Methodist church or a Catholic church or some aid organization that was helping Koreans come to this country for education and finding a better life. So I heard these stories growing up. My mom and dad were always part of a ge, which is like a shared savings circle, social, get together once a month for potlucks, and you'd put money into the pot and take turns taking the pot home. You could use it for whatever you wanted. I've been parts of lots of really silly, frivolous ges with my girlfriends in New York City. I bought a laptop one time with my money, and Shinny always bought herself a ring, or a piece of jewelry. But I've heard of bigger ges in Queens where the pot might be hundreds of thousands of dollars. You might have to wait years for your turn, but when your turn came, you might be able to use that as a down payment on starting a business or sending a kid off to school or doing something important, not buying a couch or a laptop or a piece of jewelry, which is what my mom and dad's get, my girlfriend's get was. So these are the stories that I grew up hearing and watching and learning. And it's just been such a pleasure. We get to work in this field and get to be around all of you, who are doing similar things in your community. So Ty, to bring it back to now, we both brought our grandmothers.
Our grannies, they'd be so proud of us.
Into the rooms. Tell me a little bit about the Heritage Giving Circle and the new one that you're starting.
Okay, so first off, happy Black Philanthropy Month. Okay.
Thank you for reminding
You do
us.
not have to be black to celebrate Black generosity. So I appreciate y'all. I say happy Black Philanthropy Month because that's the origin story of my giving circle. So my giving circle started during August 2017 during Black Philanthropy Month. And it was started by my best friend, Akila Wallace. So Akila, this is my girl. So we started, there was no philanthropy together. There was no organization like that exists right now that taught us how to structure and pull together a giving circle. But what we did know is that a lot of our backgrounds was, many of us were like fundraisers, community people. Some of our sisters were nonprofit leaders. What we did know is that organizations that were led by Black women that served women and girls were severely underinvested in Dallas. Now, I can go down a rabbit hole of Dallas, but we only got 10 minutes, so I'm gonna stop. But Dallas is a tale of two cities, y'all. You know how y'all twin cities? We're like two cities, and not a good way, though. Up north in North Dallas is, I'm embarrassed to say this, but they call it the white flight. That's where all the white people go to, right? In their suburban areas, that's where a lot of the resources go to. And down south, where I live, where me and my husband are raising our 5 kids, and where I'm originally from, is where all the Black and brown folks live. Y'all, the money flows up north. A lot of resources don't flow south. And so with that, we were like, Akila said, let's start a giving circle. We can pull our funds together, and we can fund the organizations that our babies go to, that our kids go to, that are led by women that look like us. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, right? And so we were like, okay, let's do it. So we all gathered at my friend's, I can't remember whose house we was at, but to your point, we just gathered in a house, we put together the framework, what then turned out to be Heritage Giving Fund. And so fast forward, we are a group of Black women from all walks of life that invest in very small grassroots organizations. I'm talking about small, y'all, budgets less than like $1 million. We even pulled it down more during 2020 to 500,000. So we invest in very small grassroots community-based organizations that are led by a Black woman who also serves Black women and girls. So we have a very tight focus, but that's okay with us because it allows us to park and invest our funds in a more intentional way, in a more intentional, strategic, and thoughtful way, which is investing in Black women all across the board.
Tell us about Thea Center.
Actually, I'm gonna tell you about Abide Women's Health.
Okay.
Yes, they're one of our grantee partners. We funded Abide, and I wrote this down because I want to make sure I say this right. Abide Health Services is a Black-led nonprofit organization in Dallas, Texas, focusing on improving birth outcomes in South Dallas by providing accessible, cultural-informed prenatal and postnatal care, including midwifery care, education, and lactation support, non-diagnostic ultrasounds, all of that. That's the kind of organization that we invest in. Now, I don't know if y'all been following the news, but Texas is under attack. Reproductive justice, y'all, it's regardless of your belief, okay? The option, the choice is non-negotiable. You cannot have abortions in the state of Texas. You will go to jail, right? And so for us, it was important for us to invest in Abide. When they submitted their grant application, we provided them with a $10,000 grant that went to student midwiferys, like people who wanted to go to school for midwifery, which is very hard to do because it's the other type of healthcare. So we provided scholarships for the students who wanted to do that. And so for us, and for me, for Heritage and the organizations that we invest in, it's like, it feels like life or death. Like for us, we take it that serious. Like if it's not us, then who? Who's gonna invest in Abide? Because the foundations, they weren't like the Minneapolis foundation that's investing in real good community work. We were pushing the narrative around why foundations, why funders should better invest in smaller organizations that serve Black women and girls in Texas. Heritage has cleared that pathway. I can proudly say that since then, the Communities Foundation of Texas, well, let me not name names, several foundations in Texas now have invested in Abide Women's Health Services Center. But Heritage was that first seed funder. So that's the importance of giving circles, y'all, right?
I love that.
I can go on and on about
I
that, but that's a
know.
real story, Holly.
And
Thanks
you guys
for
are
asking
now
me that.
9 years old. Heritage Giving Circle
Yeah,
is
so
9
we're
years old.
2017. Unfortunately, I'm not even gonna say unfortunately because my
No,
best friend
there's-
would kill me,
exactly.
but we actually are sunsetting because Heritage, our sisters, now want to invest in advocacy work, right? So we're sunsetting the grant making side because we feel like, okay, it's funding now is flowing to these organizations that we were invested in. And our ladies now are more educated, more powerful, more connected. We're ready to put boots on ground on advocacy work to really level up our civic engagement, which is directly tied to generosity and what
we're gonna
LCF
talk about,
and
yeah.
what some of our partners are doing around civic engagement and generosity and what your next book is going to be about.
Yeah, and I think that that's an important point because one of the fake rules, Glenn Galick runs a
Fake
podcast and wrote a book, and one of the things he talks about is breaking fake rules. And I think one of them is that things have to live in perpetuity. Giving circles, like lots of things, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So thank you for sharing that Heritage has had a great run. They have found and
Correct.
funded amazing projects in Texas, which is such an important state politically to be funded by a group of Black women.
Totally.
I'll share a quick story before our time is up about the
Oh,
Asian
sure.
Women Giving Circle, which I started 20 years ago. We turned
Amazing
20
giving
this
circle,
year.
by the way, Holly.
And I
what
know
y'all
we're still
do.
going strong. It's like herding cats. I love them. I hate them. But there's such an important sisterhood for me in New York, even though they do also kind of drive me a little bit crazy. They're just so funny. So about lots of years, 2009, I think, we got a proposal across our desks to fund this group of young activists who wanted to integrate the official Chinatown Lunar New Year parade to include gay, queer, and trans kids to be able to march in the parade. This is in my book, if you've read it. And at that time, you couldn't be out and march in this most public and biggest of New York City's, maybe America's, maybe in addition to San Francisco, Lunar New Year parades. So of course we got this thing, we were like, yeah, we want to fund it, and we want to march with you. We want to break down the walls and march with you. So this day dawned, it was a February that year, it was a cold, crisp, beautiful New York City winter's day. We marched with that group that morning. There were no problems, no one was arrested, it was totally joyful. That group was covered that evening as we were cooking dinner with our kids. They were covered on our local NPR affiliate, Time Out New York, New York Times, covered this little tiny grassroots group. And the reason they covered the story is because this group of activists made history. From that day forward, you could be gay and trans and queer and march and be out in that parade. The grant dollars that we gave to Q-Wave, this group of activists that time, we were their only funder who was not an actual blood relative, which is so common for the projects we fund. They asked for $4,000, and I'm pretty sure that our money paid for beer, Oreos, and art supplies, so they could make puppets and rainbow parades to do the thing they were gonna do. $4,000 to change history for gay, queer, and trans people in New York City. We have funded in queer, gay, trans issues from the very beginning of this Giving Circle's existence because we know from our own families how hard it is to be gay in our own families. Trans is basically impossible in so many of our families. My group is Indian American, Japanese, Chinese, lots of different Chinese groups, Korean, lots of different South Asian groups, Southeast Asian groups. So we know from personal experience how hard it is to be gay or trans in our family, so we have funded in that area from the start. And I'll close my story by sharing that one of our other grantee partners told us that getting a grant from the Asian Women Giving Circle feels like having a group of aunties cheering on the sidelines. It's the thing I'm most proud of. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want that on my tombstone. A group of aunties cheering on the sidelines. And Julie and I are going to get into this later, but I think one of the magical pieces of collective giving and what you guys are building here in Minnesota, and you guys are doing such an incredible job, is that relationships are infrastructure. And we'll get into that later. And we are at time.
We are at time. And I'll just add that one thing, relationships are infrastructure, Holly, and also beyond the dollar support is as important as the grant itself. For a lot of giving circles, it's the beyond the dollar. It's the care that we provide our grantee partners beyond that makes us very strong. And the last thing I would like to do before I leave this stage is, y'all, I'm big on affirmations, and I just feel led to say some affirmations collectively as a group. Look around at the diversity at the table, y'all. Y'all repeat after me. We are well. We are philanthropists. We are stronger together. And y'all, together, we're making a difference.
Making a difference.
We got this, y'all. Happy Black Philanthropy Month. Bye.